Lando Norris has been consistently linked to Red Bull in the past, and Christian Horner has delivered yet another promising statement regarding the young Brit's future with the Austrian team if he opts for a career alongside Max Verstappen. There's no doubt that Norris is one of the brightest and fastest talents on the grid right now, and with the circumstances revolving around Sergio Perez and Red Bull, it's hard to imagine that the Mexican driver won't be replaced in 2025. Will we see the super dream team formed by Verstappen and Norris get on the stage in 2 years' time? And if so, will this show the cruel side of Red Bull regarding the treatment of their academy drivers? Lando Norris has been nothing short of amazing in 2023 so far, and even him outperforming Ricciardo in 2022 has gone on to prove that he has quite some value in terms of being the #1 driver in the team. Even now, he's been able to build a solid advantage over Piastri, even though that was expected considering that the Aussie is just a rookie. But it does still show that Norris is not going to settle for anything less than an equal opportunity to prove that he's the better driver in the same machinery. While many experts have dubbed this mission to be one from the hell, if he chooses Red Bull as his next destination, the technical regulations that were implemented from 2022 saw the Austrian team as the most dominant outlet, and some of the FIA representatives fear that this domination might continue until 2029, 3 years after the implementation of the new technical regulations in 2026. Even if Norris decides to remain with McLaren and pursue a championship with them, he would have to outperform drivers like Hamilton, Russell, Leclerc, Sainz, and you can never write Aston Martin off. Not to mention that there's the giant named Verstappen waiting for him if he manages to somehow be the second fastest driver in a different car compared to the Dutchman. So while the move to Red Bull would be a very risky one for Norris, because he can automatically lose the position of the alpha male and not have a car built around him, the Brit has constantly said good words about how the Austrian's team car performs and how he would like to actually have some of its natural characteristics in McLaren as well. You know what they say, if you can't beat them, join them. So while this is very likely to be the scenario with Norris, as he's yet to renew the contract with McLaren from 2024 and beyond, and with Piastri already committing to the Woking-based squad until 2026, there will always be uncertainty around Norris's name. This is why Christian Horner doesn't want to let go that easily of the idea of having two superstars as drivers in Red Bull from 2025 onwards. And when talking about this, he went on to say, Lando is a great driver. He's a big talent, a big personality, and of course he's one of those drivers that you keep an eye on. We keep an eye on all the driver market, but there's many drivers that you keep an eye on as well. There's a generation of drivers out there at the moment that have got a huge amount of talent. Max is operating at such a level that his confidence, his commitment, his talent is absolute at the moment, and it's difficult to envisage somebody beating him in the same equipment. But there's some great talent out there, and of course what we want is the best two drivers we can possibly field. So ideally, that will come from within the talent pool that we have, and if we don't believe there's that capability, we will look outside of that as to who's available. Now, this is more or less the same opinion as Helmut Marko shares on Lando Norris, and considering the fact that Norris was very close to signing with Red Bull on 2 occasions in his career, back in 2018 and 2021, it goes without saying that this one is likely the biggest and maybe the last opportunity he'll have to join the Austrian squad. But McLaren have intuitively found out about this entire situation, which is why they've started to bring massive upgrades on the MCL60, as they're now more often than not the second fastest team on the grid, a consistency that not even Mercedes or Ferrari were able to achieve with their latest upgrades. Lando Norris will definitely have one massive challenge ahead of himself, beating Verstappen as a teammate, and this is a feature that hasn't been achieved in quite some time. If we're not going to consider the first 2 seasons of Verstappen and Ricciardo being teammates in Red Bull, then we can say that Verstappen hasn't been outperformed by anyone in his team. Yep, the competitiveness of Albon and Gasly is rather questionable if you compare them to Ricciardo and Perez, but there's no question about it that Norris would push Verstappen to the next level and make the entire sport a lot more interesting to watch. However, the Woking-based squad is now on a steady uprising line, and it seems like there's nothing that could stop them from fighting more regularly for race wins. But if there is one thing that Norris would more likely prefer in his team right now, it's a lesser competitive teammate. Signing Piastri and extending him until 2026 definitely shows the willpower of McLaren to commit to another driver, amid all of the talks that Norris might leave them, as more often than not he was related to different teams not named McLaren regarding his F1 future. Be that as it may, Andrea Stella has also opened up on the conversation talks that they had with Norris regarding the contract extension, saying that they're going in a very good direction right now. Elaborating on this, the McLaren principal said, "We're certainly having conversations with Lando. They are good conversations. We are happy with how these conversations are going. We don't need to buy people in. We want people to give us the vote of confidence to stay with us, genuinely truly believing in the journey together with McLaren." No question about it, progress is definitely one massive factor that could convince Norris to remain in McLaren, but many F1 experts have raised some questions about whether or not the Brit will be able to reach his full potential with the Woking-based squad, regardless of whether or not he'll have a car built around his preference. From finishing dead last in the opening race in Bahrain to racking up 4 podium finishes and having a career-high P2 finish on a couple of occasions, it's been definitely the season that Norris would have hoped for, as he's chasing Leclerc for the 6th place in the Drivers' Championship, being only 20 points behind the Monegasque driver. But it goes without saying that it's mostly him that's putting the car to work, and while Piastri does have 57 points and 1 podium finish as well, which is quite amazing for a rookie, this is something that might actually translate as bad news for Norris, as the situation can only turn from good to better for his teammate. He is very young, has won the F3 and F2 championships, and in this era, he's absolutely outperformed the car that was given to him. If McLaren manages to make noise in 2024 and compete for a championship all of a sudden, then I guess all of this talk will be forgotten, because this would be more than enough for Norris to be convinced and remain with them in the foreseeable future, as this is the team that gave him the opportunity to actually race in F1. However, the team we're talking about isn't in a project phase. It's in a phase where it's looking for another superstar driver who needs to be on par with Verstappen's performance. And what better driver to accomplish this than Norris? This would be one of the few times that Red Bull would go out of their way and sign an outside hire, with the last one being Sergio Perez back in 2021, and it might pose a serious threat for all the young and upcoming drivers in Red Bull, such as Liam Lawson, for example. The Kiwi has done amazingly well on his first 4 races as an F1 driver, and that's why there's a strong belief that Horner has already promised him a seat in Red Bull. But what we must not forget here is that Red Bull considers AlphaTauri to be their own team as well, with high tendencies that this might not be the case in the upcoming years, as the Italian squad is looking to be more independent in the years to come. McLaren's recent restructure of their infrastructure, as well as the technical department, has translated into very good results on the track. So good to the point of Hamilton actually urging Mercedes to copy their customer company and to deliver the same car based on the same principles from 2024 onwards. This is not something that you can say for any other team out there not named Red Bull, so there's a lot of anticipation regarding Norris and his future with the team. Will he choose the safe path and be Verstappen's teammate in the most dominant car ever, or will he choose to fight this entire thing until the very end of it with McLaren and emerge as victorious in the upcoming seasons? Do you think that Norris will join Red Bull amid pressures from Red Bull's new owners, as well as Liberty Media from 2025 onwards, and create a super team with Verstappen? Let us know what you think in the comments below.